you've you've dived deep into that point, and you've collected different facets to answer this question. And while you were speaking, I was noting on several, and what came to my mind was several of the matters you are raising, and I was raising questions here. And that chronology that you just gave us of how did we get here, and you talked of the importance of history in how the law is made, governed, passed, applicability, and who is supposed to
taught. Don't forget
yes,
taught.
and taught. I'm coming to that point because you've said that we get literally the unwritten rule is that we entrust the vitality of our law to university or to law schools where not all people can access the law school. And for me, what came into my mind is you posed a rhetoric question of where does the law school that we entrust our vitality of the law, where is it held accountable? Where is the law school? Who keeps it in checks and balances? And probably would say the National Council of Education, but for its work is more technical, of course. It rules the curriculum and what should be taught, part of the law. But then we would say the LDC does so. But for several years now, the LDC is at the radar every time, and not for good news, but for what you call a crisis every time. So if the epitome of law students is leaving universities and then go to the LDC, and now the LDC, which would think that is the model, it's the furnace, the final furnace that lets out the breed of lawyers, asked that which caliber of lawyers also do we produce at the end of the day. So if lawyers we produce and where we think they should be molded finally is an epitome of crisis all the time for the past so many years, who is sleeping at their job? That is one. But before you respond, there is also something very important that you raised here, the note of history. When I was in my first history class many years ago, we defined history as the study of the past, the present, and the reflection of the future. And you mentioned it clearly that the people passing the law are the MPs in Parliament, who have actually just concluded their orientation week to Parliament. Do they have a session where they are taught about the real gist of one of their core mandates, which they pride in, passing the law? And if yes, what do they learn in those sessions? And if no, is it one of the issues that has probably brought us here? Because many of the law that we quote the Constitution, which you said was an elite meeting in 1995 that probably saw what we have today, the CA, and then you talked about how the reforms have been coming, the amendments in the Constitution, and how the buck must stop with someone. And now my question here, you talked of the Uganda police celebrating 100 years and being in 2014 at Colorado Ceremonial Grounds, and you said they should not have been celebrating 100 years because they were not put up 100 years ago. So you directly show the importance of history and the attachment it has from the past, the present, and the future. So I think, dear listeners, you understand why I said it's a conversation of present, but from the future tonight. So, counsel, who should be the final person we hold accountable that all these factors seem to have been ignored And from what you say, it is intentional. It seems uh, an intentional movement that has been orchestrated over time, planned by senior architectures, and not just people who are ignorant about the law or how it should operate, but those who know about the law and how it operates. And yes, maybe you speak to those first.
I'm laughing at your question. It reminds me of a book I read when I was still a child. I forget the title, but it's during my HSC. I read a lot of. I read 1984 and a number of books by George Orwell, but books, short stories. But there's a particular one. It's really a pantomime. It's like he had a small song, like a song. You're asking for a very reductionist philosophy that if we can find some one person to blame, and then maybe we deal with them, and then everything will be okay. And a lot of our politics, revolves around that issue. Unfortunately, or fortunately for me, I think last time, I don't know if I recommended the book by Barbara Geddes, How Dictatorships Work. In 2022, I read this book that allowed me to leave behind all childish thoughts I had about the transition from dictatorship to democracy. Dictatorships will arise in all human systems. Dictatorships will arise for good or for evil. They are scientific phenomena of governance. And like I said, they're not entirely bad because, people like going to Dubai and Saudi Arabia and everywhere. Even America. There are Americans who argue that America is scientific. So dictatorships are scientific phenomena. But overall, the question of good governance, I think, if I can call it that, is a responsibility for, to put it bluntly, each generation, in terms of Fanon, each generation must set its values. It must have this bargain of what's the value system that is going to guide us, and what's the value system that we are going to agree to fight for, safeguard jealously. And I think, to their credit, the framers of the 1995 Constitution, they thought they had arrived at that bargain. Unfortunately, now we can see, with hindsight, we can see some of the assumptions and weaknesses and even greed, I guess. One of the critiques of the 1995 Constitution is that the elites wanted jobs in the state. And so the Constitution creates very many positions for giving jobs to the various job hunting brigades. especially from communities that consider living in Kampala success. Communities that migrate, whose elites migrate from their homes and and they settle on Kampala and don't want to return. And so they need jobs to keep them in Kampala. That's the whole purpose of this constitution. It was supposed to assure those people that they will stay in Kampala. They just didn't want to leave Kampala. If they had agreed that a good Uganda involves being out of Kampala, there should be good hospitals and good schools in Arua, in Kasese, and everything. But, stripped to its bare minimum. That's really what it is. And you can see it now. It's playing out. I think you had the resolution from the parliament. There was no opposition, significantly no opposition to a resolution that will increase the number of, residents of Kampala. Are you with me, Katongole?
I'm with you.
Yes, just yesterday, a resolution was passed under Articles 113, right? You see how this constitution works?
Yes.
Hmm?
Yes.
A resolution was passed under Article 113, sub-Article 2. The total number of cabinet ministers shall not exceed 21, except with the approval of Parliament. So all these villagers who were excited to be in Kampala were asked a question: can we bring more inhabitants in
Kampala.
Kampala? Can we allow the president to bring more residents in Kampala at the expense of the poorest people in Uganda? They voted overwhelmingly yes. Using this constitution, then they were asked another question under Article 114, sub-Article 3. The total number of ministers appointed under this article, other ministers, shall not exceed 21 except with the approval of Parliament. They were asked to increase this number from 31 to 51, is it? And they voted from 21 to 51. Yes, and they voted yes. This one, they asked to move it from 21 to 31, and they voted yes. So now we have a total of 82 ministers. Are you with me?
Yes, I'm with you.
Yes. So now in Kenya, they have had a chance. Our constitution in 2010 in Kenya, they had a chance to make a constitution, though they didn't make it in 1 year. Between 2003 and 2010, the Kenyans were engaged in rigorous constitutional making. They have various drafts that they had these intellectual contexts on, including. So I think they had a referendum or two referenda, I don't know. But they had this journey, nearly 10-year journey, that results into the 2010 constitution. The point is that they have the benefit of Uganda's 1995 constitution and what has happened to Uganda. So when it comes to making cabinet ministers, other ministers, they said, we saw what happened with Uganda. So we don't want that similar situation. So for them, they said the total number of ministers shall be 21. And this shall not change throughout the time of this constitution. Are you getting me? Hello?
Yes, I'm getting you clearly.
Yes. Because their interest was that we are creating, they call them county governments. We should reduce the central government to the barest minimum it can be, to the barest size. We should not allow returning to what they call the imperial presidency. So that was their goal. They had clarity. And of course, they had the benefit of our experience, because now in Uganda, we have returned to the imperial presidency. The president is as good as the governor. He is literally appointing chiefs. These are not no longer ministers. They're just chiefs. It may as well be colonial government, where the president is just appointing a chief, number of special advisors, endless, and so on and so forth. There are special advisors that earn even more salary than ministers, and so on and so forth. It's chaotic. In Kenya, I think you heard the president try to appoint advisors, and they said that position is not there in the constitution. Are you getting me? They called them CAS, and they were blocked. I think Utumbi and others, they were blocked. So to answer your question, it's much more important that we ask our. I think for me, I would urge that we should ask that when did society lose its moorings, its foundations? When did society lose the power of moral authority, its moral culture, civic policing to the politicians and to the guns and to everything? When or how did corruption, everything, I think we can call all this political corruption, how did it become normal? And what has been our response? So there it's easier to understand that everybody has participated. There is an essay I have been reading lately on the judiciary, because now me, I'm a man of law. I like to see that, well, politicians, the two political branches, they will always be corrupt. That's the essence of power. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So the idea is, the theory is, you create a judicial branch which won't be corrupt, to police and control and cut these politicians back to shape, and and so on, and throw the fear of the law in them, and so on and so forth. And so this essay argues that actually the most corrupt, the people most responsible for the corruption, the decay of state, of the snooze of constitutional democracy, are ordinary public servants. Leave alone the leaders. That ordinary public servants have so much power to stop all these things, to stop the collapse. The ordinary public servant, the ordinary magistrate, the ordinary judge has the power to stop all this. But once they rationalize simple things like, I just want to keep my job, so let me allow this wrong thing to be done. That's how the whole thing collapses. Because you see, they are the ones who have the state. They're the ones who comprise the state. The rest of us, our mothers, our fathers, we are citizens. We are out there. We are taxi conductors. We are taxi passengers. We don't have state power, any part of it. But for them, they have. The clerk. The clerk maybe doesn't have much power. It's just a clerk. He's a cleaner. He's a messenger. But you take, let me see. Use the example of Katongole, you've traveled. So when you're entering a border, there's a person who looks at the passport and says if things are in order. Are you with me?
I'm with you.
Hello? Yes. So that person, if you don't have a passport, you just show him air. You show him any paper, and then you wink at him or her, and he allows you to go. Won't you have entered the country?
You will have entered.
And I think if you're asking me, where does it all go wrong? I think that's where it is. Now you multiply that person by their number. Are you with me?
Yes, I'm with you.
Mm. When I was studying at law school, I understood constitutional law and the constitutional cases from. There's a very important case in America called Miranda. Versus US, which state I forget. But the judges argued that, you see, we're just 9 judges. So, are you aware of the Miranda case? Hello? Katong.
Yes, counsel.
Hello?
Hello? I get you. Now I
Are
hear
you
you.
aware of the what they call the Miranda rules?
I've heard about that Miranda case of the Supreme Court back in around the 60s in the US,
Yes. Yes.
where they said, I think the case was of Miranda versus either state,
Miranda versus
Arizona.
Arizona.
Yeah,
Yes. So this Miranda fellow, they've made a movie and a series about it. Is it a movie?
it's a
Movie
series.
and a
There is a
series some
series.
few years back. Eh?
Yes, yes,
It's a series, eh?
yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So well, the case is celebrated for the protection it gives Americans, or anybody living in America, in terms of contact with the state, the police officer. Miranda was, I think, accused of rape. He was a serial rapist or something like that in Arizona. So the state of Arizona really wanted this man dead quickly. But well, he got this young lawyer who argues this very fine point that the police got confessions. They interviewed this person without a lawyer present, and they're like, but he raped, but his crimes are known. His evidence is overwhelming. So, as far as the state of Arizona was concerned, Miranda's death sentence was confirmed. Every appeal was rejected. So he was left with one chance to appeal to the Supreme Court of America, and the Supreme Court of America doesn't hear every appeal. It chooses to hear a few appeals, not more than 70. Yeah. So you can imagine it receives almost 1,000 or 10,000. Nowadays, up to 12,000 appeals. It picks about 1,000, and he has only about 200, and it's a lottery. So Miranda wins the lottery, and the Supreme Court hears his appeal. And the judges, in that case, one of the judges says, that we're only 9. All people who inhabit America have to rely on the 9 of us to provide them meaningful protection against both state and federal police power. We won't be there. There is no lawyer out there on this as you walk on the streets. There's no lawyer to protect. There's no law institution. So let us write a rule that will force the police themselves to police themselves as they police us. Are you getting me, Mr. Katongole?
Yes.
And so they wrote that rule that if you're a policeman in America, state or federal, and you arrest somebody, you incur an obligation to inform them right there and then. Number one, that this is an arrest on the suspicion of this offense. Do not say anything until you have a lawyer. Although I'm going to take you to police and push somewhere, do not answer any question I ask you. until you have a lawyer present and a lawyer of your choice as much as possible. Now, this is that if the police don't say this, anything they do with you thereafter is unlawful. And the prosecution, the conviction, the results will be set aside. It won't matter what you did. Now, that's a law that is it's freedom enhancing. That's a rule that is so freedom enhancing. But it makes the police, it reminds the police that all your effort, you woke up in the morning to go and do police work and everything, all your results will be turned to nothing. Now you imagine you're a policeman, you chase a guy, you break your leg, and then you hear that, what happened to that case that the guy we caught with all these drugs? And they released him. He reported you for not having given him his rights at the point of arrest and during custody. So police officers and police departments realize that irrespective of the power they have, guns and everything, there is this rule that causes them to be disciplined, even when no one is watching. So that the judge, there are many judges, but the judge who said, because you remember this decision wasn't unanimous, but so the most persuasive and why it has withstood attack is that are the statements of the judge who said that the law is as strong is as the faith and fidelity of the law enforcer, that lowly office, that lowest officer. Are you getting me, Katongole?
Yes, I get you.
That we have a decision. We must make a decision where we take the protection away from the faith and fidelity of the police officer. We should not rest Americans' rights on the faith. We must protect Americans against the worst cop, the bully beater, the worst cop, the bully, the loudest, fiercest bully in Arizona is the one we must put. The one who doesn't care about law, the one who shouts that what's lawful, that's the guy we must discipline so that he learns to police himself. Now, when you look at our attitude and the judges and everything, for us, largely because it goes down again to how we teach law and how we practice it and write it, it's written in English and everything. So we haven't vernacularized our legal traditions. So when our judges are interpreting law, making decisions, they give huge burden, a huge benefit of, basically called benefit of the burden to public servants too. Are you getting me, Mr. Katongole?
Yes, I get you, sir.
I will give you. I will speak more on something that is personal for me. When I called the DPP a vagina, a pumpkin, the first time I said it, 2022, even when I repeated it, a lot of lawyers, citizens, they rose up in arms to protect this person. And for me, the shock was that, why are you protecting the person? Why are you protecting this institution? Public prosecutors do harm daily. They deserve no protection. To me, they are dangers. The charge sheets they sign against Ugandans daily. All Ugandans know. First of all lawyers. Even a judge right now, if you told him that your son is at police, he would go and he would understand that he has to bribe police officer, he has to bribe prosecutors, the whole system doesn't have but when you look at the rules, take an example, for instance. Ugandans are aware of so many stupid charge sheets that have been sanctioned and presented. Now, magistrates have formed a rule for themselves that they have no power to reject charge sheets. Now, there's no such rule. Are you getting the katongole?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, they have the power. The magistrates have the power to say, what is this charge sheet for? Why is this young man? Why is this woman here? I'll give an example. During COVID, after I had called that woman a vagina, there was a sweep of women in Lira. Do you know if you remember?
Yes, I do remember very
So
well.
somebody, just because there was a camera, just because there was now there were many sweeps. Because now with COVID, they were hurting the poor people badly. Because the poor were, didn't understand what's going on. They have to make a living daily. So anyway, these women in Lira were very badly mistreated, and it was broadcast, and there was so much backlash in the media. Do you know what happened? So these women were brought. Their breasts are. These are old women. Their breasts are showing. You know, we saw all this. Then they were sent. The magistrate sent them to Lira or to wherever they sell them in Lira, to prison for very minor charges. I think the offense was violating, is it COVID guidelines? Are you getting me? Huh? Now, the essence of COVID guidelines is, what do you call it? Spacing. to ensure the goal
Social
of the
distance.
COVID law is to show social distance. Now, the way of arresting, detaining, and presenting before court itself was violating COVID guidelines. Even the remedy, so even the remedy of the court, even the solution, instead of telling these people to go home to disperse, they were sending them to jail, crowding them there. Are you seeing it? Why? Because this magistrate just wants to go home. Just wants to go home. And she's counting on a fellow lawyer. So this is one lawyer is counting another lawyer. This lawyer, this fellow public lawyer, government lawyer. So this is a conspiracy of government lawyers, none checking the other. Now, when this was all shown, the next thing we saw was the DPP herself going to appear in the leader court herself to withdraw charges against these peasant mothers. You know, showboating. But had there been no publicity, the position of the state would be to reject bail for these people as if they have no grounds. Now the DP was there saying, no, they shouldn't have been arrested. These are nice people. And when that was done, in Kampala here, they continued these things daily. They continued the police to prison pipeline. Because it's, either there's publicity can't change anything, people are numbed against it, and so on and so forth. But the point I'm making to you, in terms of law, is that the ordinary civil servant, the ordinary government lawyer in various government departments has a lot of power and opportunity to stop the breaking of law. But like I said, they did not receive their training in a tradition where they were, in a tradition which cemented the philosophy that law without courage is tyranny. Are you getting me?
Yes.
Every time you have to make a decision based on law and you do not accompany it with courage, the result is called what?
Tyranny.
It's called tyranny. So that's therein lies your answer. How did we arrive at here? Through, a cacophony of tyrannies. Small tyrannies. Or tyranny is not small. Every tyranny is a tragedy for the victim. But tyranny is by very small officers. And there biggest difference is, we are seeing our superiors conduct tyranny as well. So the rule of law here is tyranny. If I do not do tyranny, I will be fired. Are you getting me? So I just want to keep my job. Is how we arrived here.
Wow,
Yes,
wow,
Mr.
wow. Uh, Council Semakadde responds to this clearly, and throughout his entire submission, you were feeling, and you could just get the imagery of what happens in real context or in real everyday life. And he posed very many examples while making his submissions on how we arrived here, and also responding to the questions that I posed to him earlier on. Good. Unfortunately, our comment section today can't uh, can't open. I think due to a technical glitch, that's why you are unable to send your comments. But I want to thank everybody that has tuned in from where we started. From I see Godwin, I see Wanyo, I see Nasasra, I see Little Hansel, I see Watoto, Herbert, very many people, Shiba, Luburwa, Ivan, Tony, Atfaire, and very many others. I saw the vice president of the Galalo Society, Anthony Asimo, was on space. Even the admin of the Galalo Society page was on. I see Rita Jamal. Okay, so this Council Semakadde has indeed cast a spotlight on several matters and several issues and responded to them. But every time he's submitting, this is why I call this a conversation from the future. You begin to ask you to have a lot of issues to ponder about, or to see an angle probably that you had missed or you felt is normal. And he clearly draws where the line between how we run our affairs as a country today and where we left the law in the proper administration, in what he called governance, in the proper in the administration of this country. So right now, I'm going to allow a few people. I'm going to allow the people that have been listening in to ask some questions or to bring your interactions, because unfortunately, because of a technical glitch, our comment section is not open, so we are not able to get your feedback, because we would like to know your feedback from where council started his submissions. Would like to pick your feedback, but our comment section is closed. I see Principal D here. I see Timothy here. Timothy has been on space since it started. Maybe you can just request, and we give you a minute or two to make your submissions. And later on, I'll be returning to Council Semakadde with we shall be advancing our conversations and going deeper to some of the issues that I told you from the very beginning that we have on our agenda. If you want to say something, please just raise your hand. I give you the microphone, and you elevate it to the level of a speaker, and you make your contribution tonight. Once again, this is the May episode of the Insights Express series, and we are having our guest tonight. It's a one-on-one interview. The legal cast, of course, with Senior Counsel and President of the Uganda Law Society, Isaac Ssemakadde, on the state of our affairs, going deep into how the position of the law versus how we run different affairs in the state, or the position of the law in the governance of our country. So this is why we're here, to interrogate, to know where did we go wrong. If we went wrong, what are the remedies possible, and to reimagine or to recast a Uganda or a home where we have the rule of law, like how he defined it, that this is the rule of law is when judges are able to cancel or government decisions or government orders and then help the poor while they are being oppressed by the rich, because he said by virtue of existence of power, the rich and powerful already have power. They don't need the law. But if we say we have a rule of law or the rule of law, that means it's what we are supposed to see is the judiciary or the court turning down decisions of government and then help the ordinary civilians fight or get defended while being oppressed by the rich. I think at this very moment, I don't see anyone who has raised their hand. Maybe we can just continue. I can just continue with counsel here. It seems you're enjoying the conversation. Counsel, my next question would be that when you asked that the question we should be asking ourselves is, when did society lose the power of moral authority to policemen, to guns? When did it lose its power of civic policing? When did we lose our social contract as citizens to hold power accountable and give in to the different forms you mentioned, money and others? But then my next question to you goes to the recent events. Let's just come to the recent events. We saw we saw what has been happening with the former Speaker of Parliament at her home and everything, the search. But while all that was happening, and then people were appreciating that maybe we have now a fight or a visible action towards the push against corruption, but many were arguing that it is a right deed done wrongly, because many argue that if we are fighting corruption, we need to see the powers that we pay a lot of taxpayers' money, powers that we put acts of parliament for, powers that should be in this matter. And many were asking, where's the Auditor General and the IGG's office in this matter? And many were also asking, when did military, police, or military, or the UPDF begin to conduct such investigations against corruption? And then another recent event is that also unfolded from the Speaker, the office of the Parliament, the 11th Parliament, on how they did most of their work when passing rules that all laws that are regarded as controversial, because many people are saying that the due process of the law was not followed, the days which the bill is supposed to take before first reading, at committee stage, consultations, that all these, at very many times when there is passing of laws that are heated, we don't see this. And then there came another issue of that if we are saying Parliament is the watchman for the other arms of government, but look at things we've seen like appropriation, service awards, and then people are asking, who monitors this watchdog or this watchman? Who monitors the watchman? Who appropriates to the watchman or to the appropriator? So all these point to a constitutional crisis, like you called it. So my next question, showing you those series of events, is how do we get away from here? Do we go back and sit and make another constitution, do we now accept that the framers, either of the Constitution or the enforcers of the law, have completely neglected the law, and like you said, people are doing tyranny, that they form tyrants, and those who don't do tyranny, at very many times they think they will lose their jobs. So how do we get out of here? Because now you've showed us what did we miss? How did we get here? So with all this, how do we begin the journey to get out of this place? Counsel, are you there?
Yeah, you asked quite a number of things. You touched on a number of things. Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you loud and clear.
Can you hear me now? Yes.
Yes,
The
I
last
do.
question is a simple one. The last question is a simple one. How do we get out of this? This is how we are doing it exactly. Through pockets of citizen, bonfires like this, to refine our value system, and to refine our vision for a constitutional republic, and to argue and debate on our shared history, the grievances and frustrations in our present, but ultimately to learn from that and agree on a collective vision and a value system to support the process of getting there. One hopes that we can escape, we can commit to these processes with humility, sincerity, alacrity, and an awareness of the challenge of rebuilding a constitutional republic, restoring trust, and resisting lawlessness. The challenge of resisting lawlessness, you see, these three things, that's where we are. We can't escape. We can't escape conversations about rebuilding, repairing, and resisting. Yeah? We can't escape those conversations. Now, unfortunately, a lot of what I see happening, and that explains the current state of affairs, is a phenomenon called pseudo-resistance, which is ably articulated in the works of Frantz Fanon, Albert Camus, and many others who lived under colonialism. The other pseudo-resistance. The other one also is what I can call the curse of novelty. I'll deal with those two respectively in this order. Let me start with the curse of novelty. So, in any space, digital space, to go with the most predominant, in most digital spaces, even ordinary conversations, there will be very there will be a sizable number of people that will come to these conversations from the wrong premise that these things are new and novel, that they are the first generation to be in this position, to face abject poverty, to face a dictator. Here we can understand the whole people power and no crisis. Even the theme that they chose, removing a dictator. When for us we saw it, we stepped aside because it was tying into the curse of novelty. It was driven, fueled. So the conversations there about dictatorship that they were having were very limited. They were very shallow. So we failed to create a generation that could have higher aspirations than the dictatorship it was fighting. This is something that Professor Gene Sharp talks about in the book From Dictatorship to Democracy. That when a dictator has been in a place, in a particular, when a particular population or people or republic have suffered dictatorship and they wish to rescue themselves from dictatorship, they must warn themselves that of a number of things that he talks about in his book. One of them is that that the dictatorship is pervasive. It enters literally every aspect of your life, including how you think. And so you may think that you're opposing it, but your opposition is supporting it, wittingly or unwittingly. For instance, now, I think the whole new people power thing ended up being a cycle, repeating what we had seen with the FDC. Channeling an opposition, a class of politicians that we can call opposition, and they take up 4 more seats in the dictatorship. So the dictatorship has designed a number of seats for the opposition. And then we say, in fighting for those seats, we are removing the dictator. That's something. So now, if you went now, again, the case of novelty, that for many of those people, they were new. So that's why there was this idea of we want to remove the old opposition and bring a new class of opposition people, the class of novelty. The class of novelty comes up in many ways. The idea that if we are new players, if we have new grievances, if we bring new blood, we will do it differently. We will succeed this time. We will change the collective vision. we will change the value system. It doesn't. It's not correct. Now, if we can have humility to understand the curse of novelty, I have, in the spaces I used to go to, young people would fight me off. I'll tell them that, but why do you think you're the first generation of young people? Why do you think you will be young forever? When I used to represent young activists for the FDC, that there'll be youth activists. I said, what would be your politics when you outgrow youth activism? Do you remember this time we saw with the Mukasambide? Was it Mukasambide? There were these UID people that kept calling themselves UID. They literally had to be pushed into Lake Victoria. Do you remember Mr. Katongole?
Yes.
They had to be slapped and pushed out of UID because because they wanted to keep thumb sucking on UID. Even when they were no longer young young Democrats. Yes. So But a lot of people come to these conversations with newness, novelty. Like I said here, to set as an example, I must repeat my gratitude to General Bigirwa, who is using his platform to increase public awareness, about politics and political development by rejecting the curse of novelty. I think this is not new. When the government moves against to conduct a purge of one of its own, like speaker, it's not new. It's not new. And it will not end in jail. You can run back many examples. Museveni has done this with many people. But people don't want to hear this in their conversations. They don't want to do that. Yes, it is. And now Moses is fighting corruption as if it's new. So I could give you further examples of that. But if we can remove the curse of novelty and reject these mirages, smoke screens that the dictatorship provides, we will do better. The other paradigm I gave you was what? Tony, Arnold, are you there?
Yes, you gave us the curse of novelty, and you said let you begin with that one, and then
pseudo resistance. Pseudo resistance. Now, in modern terms, pseudo resistance, we can think that when we hashtag, we are engaging in the resistance. In the resistance, when we do exhibition, and when we do things in silos. A common example people used to do when you talk to our service, they will say, gwe kola bibyo, naffe tukole ebyaffe. Who has stopped you from doing your own things? And why are you copying us? So that, but if we can actually then realize that there's a famous picture I see in the memes where people are seated, the table on which the fat cats are eating rests on the backs of ordinary workers, such that if they realize that it is their backs that are keeping the eating table, if they just rose up like this, the eating would stop right there and then, and these fat cats would be outnumbered. You see, they have, when they put they would be outnumbered. They don't know the number of people down there. They just put a table on all of them and start eating the national cake. You take this one, you take that one. These people are just there. We've covered them. So, but if people just rose up, suddenly the room would become small, and I think there would be a stampede. They would be stepped on and so on and so forth. So the goal is that the win against bad governance, the victory for good governance, will be a collective win. This idea of Sir Samuel Beckett, why do I keep calling him Sir? Samuel Beckett wrote the book Waiting for Godot. He's an Irish author of great repute, who understands resistance in the Irish format. The Irish have been fighting colonial resistance of the British for more than 400 years. We haven't yet even begun to count the years. We haven't yet made a century in resistance against fellow people, fellow Ugandans, fellow Ugandans who have colonized us, because that's what the Irish are under, because we're not under an invading force, So But he in this play, he uses a play, to bring the whole point where if we don't realize that resistance can take as long as our whole lives. Now, when people hear that, subscribing to resistance takes whole life, I want out. You hear, Tony? Arnold. So, because of the extensive exposure to neoliberal pleasures, we are the Netflix generation, we want to party, we want to do this, we want everything. We want soft life, and at the same time we want good governance. We want it all. Now that means that we honestly can't confront that true resistance has the cost. So everybody wants that cost to be carried by others. I am now a leader for the back. And when I was campaigning, I was under no illusion. That's why I guess I was overwhelmingly voted, because I was promising to bang the table. You see, the idea was that I would be the one banging. Don't worry, I'll be the one banging for you. And people were very happy to say, you bang. You get it? So they were very happy. It was, people were voting me while hugging me, while, blessing me, because they understood instinctively. I touched their psychological, their unconscious thought, and that innate desire that you go and bang for me. Yeah, and that's what they would say literally. Man, me, I'm giving you my vote. Go and bang for us. Go and bang for me. Like me, I'm going to be a collaborator. But in spirit, I'll be resisting through you. So we engage in orgies. I think that's what Fanon calls the orgies of pseudo resistance, and that prolongs. First of all, it prolongs the resistance. Number one, as you saw what happened with apartheid and everything. But it also wears out. It wears out your soldiers. you know, when Bobby Wine, rain and I had to psychologically, I knew. I was like, you need to go and renew yourself, soldier. There's no. It doesn't make good sense to stay on the front line daily. For us, when for us we are partying, we are fucking, we are eating, we are remaining corrupt. We want you to win the good governance battle for us. Are you with Mr. Katongole? That's not participating in a common conversation for building a collective vision for a constitutional republic, undergirded by a value system that we have reduced into a rule book that will help the past make a market past, a market break, a market departure from the past. No. People just want things to happen miraculously, through what Beckett calls a Godot. I'll use the example here of there's a common example of a Sarah Okero, a plumber and builder from Lira, who ended up looking for Cheo in Zanzibar. And he discovered that for 400 years, black people in the small strip of land in Unguja, in the plantations of Unguja. Zanzibar is big. I've been there. When you sit on the map, you think it's small. But what happens is that Zanzibar has a metropolis called Stone Town, where the good life is. But they have plantations. I mean, what's his name? The Sultan did not migrate from Muscat to come and occupy Stone Town. There's a colony, massive colony, on which you can grow all sorts of these cloves and everything. There's a massive agricultural colony. and Zanzibar. So the people, the natives, had contemplated resistance for years and years against this small number of people that occupy a few houses in Stone Town. When this man from Lira comes and sees all these natives, after working in the plantations, they sit, drink, and dream and sing of revolution. He organized them to make a run because Stone Town apparently had even just one street like in Bari. And they moved in. I think he had understood the patterns. They are praying, they are conducting. We can attack them when they are conducting, when they are meeting as families. And that's what, and then they toppled the whole thing and they had power. And they didn't know what to do with the power. Apparently, they ran government for some time and he was tricked by Nyerere. That you come to Zanzibar now, you come to Dar es Salaam and I introduce you, we do a press conference, I introduce you to the international world. And the rest is history. He never returned. Dar es Salaam there, they arrested him and Nyerere, who was also hosting the people who had been toppled because they had run to the mainland. He told them, now you run back and take back your power. And that's, I think that's the great leader Karume was able to establish a republic, and then Zanzibar signed itself into a union for protection against such a revolution happening again. But what's the point? That it then turns out that we could be more, we could, in this sort of stalemate, quagmire, you open yourself out for a Kenyan coming to do resistance for us. I mean, I guess that's why people, if Ibrahim Traore began to project power that he can rescue other countries, he would receive welcome response. I mean, if he said he wants to rescue Nigeria, I think many Nigerians would support him because he's bearing the cost of helping them deal with the agents of imperial extraction and exploitation and tyranny in their lived life. Yeah, that's my take on that, bro.
Thank you very much, Counsel. There you raised the point of the curse of nobility and pseudo-resistance, and saying, but all we get to know that these are not the ultimate goal, the ultimate sacrifice to good governance. You've mentioned the examples and painted it with more context, which really brings me to a point that we really need to do more for our governance. We really need to do more for what we dream of, because we can't expect miracles to just happen when we don't put in the work, of course, as a country.
Maybe if I can add something on this.
Yes.
We face a triple tragedy for us, our generation, this generation, because apart from when you talk of the curse of novelty and then pseudo resistance, there's this age of there's this technology that has come in that terribly exacerbates the problem. First of all, the apps look new. Are you getting me?
Yes.
So their power is exaggerated just because they are new. And I remember the first time I suggested this, I was almost eaten up. This one is opposing us. And I was like, but aren't we exaggerating? Aren't we exaggerating a technology from Palo Alto whose very purpose was to create echo chambers and aid exploitative, governance to contain, use your word of contain, to contain the underclass. No. This is Kulabisa. These apps are essential. And I said, well, how about we have a conversation about how the apps can work against us? Are you getting me? Okay, if we're going to do resistance on these apps, how about we then understand the schematics of the apps, own the apps, dominate the apps. Are you getting me? Surpass even what was imagined possible on the apps. Because for me, one of the things I argued then, I wrote a big space, what was it called? I wrote a thread called, do online exhibitions make a difference? I was bashed for that thread. But the core argument was quite simple that one, I made the conclusions in there. I will look for them as we continue. But one or two of the conclusions were the following. One, that there is a real threat that we may never return to the streets. Are you getting me?
Yep.
That the fantasy, the fantastic results, results achieved without sweating, in the comfort of my bedroom and our cars and what, might subconsciously tell us that what is picketing for. So I was like, we need to safeguard against that. Well, I saw a year later, I think because of our criticism, people are then saying they're going to march to parliament because they had realized that, hey, we have talked for a whole year. I'm a litigator, and I was saying that I'm also worried that we might yield the litigation space and everything we had learned before the pre-app age. Are you getting me?
I hear you.
That we had built some software, some indigenous software of accountability. And we are and if we don't, if we abandon it and then say we're just going to go with everything that is new, so and we shall litigate by tweet, or we may then lose the rule of law. And yet, it is the weapon. I must make a disclaimer here. I do not think, and I've never made the case, I've never been that deluded, that revolution was going to happen in the course, that judges were going to carry us across the river. No. As I've told you before, that the essence of judges, of courts, of legal institutions, if we understood it purely, is that they help us recruit every holder of a unit of power, every public servant. Are you getting?
Yep.
Yes. From the lowest to the highest. That's the essence. Because once we don't engage with the law, then the law becomes not just a suggestion, but a laughing subject for those who commit tyranny. Are you getting me?
Yes.
If you come for a passport, I tell you, you come back tomorrow. Yet I know that I'm holding the passport here. I have the passport. I keep looking at your name. What's your name? I go in a room, I look, I say the man with the key has gone. You've read that book by Professor Anne Merriman?
Not yet.
I think even Dr. Ian Clark has it. So I don't know who wrote the title first. But I maybe it's Clark. It's an anecdote that when Dr. Ian Clark had first come to Uganda in the late 80s, they wanted to establish with some Irish missionaries. They wanted to establish some form of hospital somewhere in Luweero, thereabout, or Mbarara, somewhere. But every time they wanted to see the district medical officer and what, every time they would be given appointments. Of course, they are Zungu. So they come, ahead of time. The appointment is for 9. They are here at 8. I tell them, wait, the man with the key hasn't come. You sit there. Then afterwards they come and they say, hey, you have just missed the man. He has gone. Something like that. Every time. The man with the key has gone. Until they understood that these people, when they would tell their local handlers, the local handlers understood immediately what it meant. It was code for corruption. Suddenly the man with the key arrived. When they offered some money, the next time they went, the man with the key was there. And so they made this book of like, okay, this country can actually move, but for us who have interacted with it, this is what we. So they wrote these books. Both of them wrote about. One wrote a chapter, one wrote a whole book. Yeah, I think that's what courts help us. They reduce the number of dimwits we're gonna have to face with. If they work, when they work.
Wow.
But
Yes.
I wanted to stress the point of the technology.
And its impact.
And if we don't domesticate, indigenize the struggle with the technology is actually work against us because I mean states are capable. I think now the government switched off Facebook. So people now had to move to Twitter. Now there's what's it called? Is it TikTok? But you saw what Americans did with TikTok.
Yes.
Even the American state entered. Eh? So these apps are not the panacea. They are not the godot we've been waiting for. You can't. They can't. They can't substitute for the work of conscientization from family level, classroom level, homestead level, fraternity level. It has to happen. If it doesn't happen, you lose the republic. You have Haiti.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Over to you.
Wow. I'm going to return to you, counsel, because where your last shot there shows that if we do not respect those campaigning for, actually not campaigning, advocating, all those that try to remind us of how far we've fallen and how if we don't pick up ourselves.
I think respect the wrong word. Join. The word is join. Respect is not. I mean, people can feign respect. People have a vested interest in lionizing activists. You look at Vestige. Didn't we lionize him?
Yeah.
Yeah, but where is it? You
Prison.
get me?
Yeah.
Not just in prison, but we can't even have a conversation. we can't even have, we can't even collectively say as Ugandans, the government has its public holidays. We are going to have our own holiday as Ugandans for BCJ. On this day, we're not going to work. It's our holiday for BCJ. And employees don't come to work and they say, I'm observing the BCJ holiday. And these are the things to do. You get me? There has to be a way. And these things, by the way, to answer you, for you to get it clearly, it, it goes to show you the lack of confidence we have. You ask the question, when did we lose our moral policing? We want to be popular. We want to be easy. We want to be easy on ourselves, on others. But I think once people come that are comfortable making us uncomfortable, we shall see results much faster. Once people, because look, every one of us wants good governance. And so we understand that it comes with discomfort. I I have always made this case. Why do people ask, why do why do you insult? Why do you do this? Why do you do that? Yeah, to normalize discomfort. Because you cannot get from A to B without discomfort. In governance, you can't. You can't. You can't. I mean, the Musevenis walked here with guns and skulls and blood. And they were saying, our justification is we have liberated you. We have rescued you. It wasn't as simple as we sat in Nairobi and we made an agreement. No. So I think for me, I can speak from a very personalized experience. And I said that the situation I am in right now is a form of discomfort that I understood would be a natural result of making lawyers uncomfortable. Are you getting me?
I get you.
And I'm very grateful that I had the chance to visit each and every lawyer that I could, and I tell them that you are going to be bled. You're going to experience a period of
Comfort.
discomfort, but that is how we deal with sepsis. You know sepsis?
No.
I'm a Sira.
Mm.
Huh? I'm a Sira. I'm Uganda muchitachi.
That's the word.
Ate mu luzungu bakiyita.
Pass.
Doctor.
Masira is pass.
Pass.
Yes.
Pass.
Yeah. Then sepsis is a body's extreme life-threatening reaction to an infection. Yeah. Are you there? Counsel ssemakadde, are you there? Okay.
Yes.
Meanwhile, as I try.
So,
Okay.
but
Okay.
pass
Now I hear you.
So I'm
Yeah.
Mm.
Yes, I hear you now.
So the whole radical new bar movement was to achieve that for the legal profession. The legal profession. And you see, you can see that there's a buy-in for that kind of conversation. There's a buy-in. Yeah, there's a buy-in. Of course, there's resistance. There's resistance to it by those who are comfortable in the status quo. Okay?
Mm.
Hmm?
Mm.
Yes, there is. In fact, there's even those who see themselves as now this is our turn to show that we can fight these people and we can be paid. But all those things, those are the dynamics of resistance. They are well documented. They are not novel. They're not novel.
Wow.
Even when the Museveni's were, I think Museveni's book, Sowing the Mustard Seed, he speaks of house number 49 in Mbale. Yeah. Where the, are they or Bote soldiers that were coming for him in a particular house in Maluku? I think it was Amin. He escapes Amin. Yes. How? Because somebody has sold him out. So the risk of us becoming food for collaborators is there. Yeah. But at the same time, once a critical mass of us has agreed to participate in the conversation, in a targeted conversation for a new collective vision and a new collective value system, it minimizes the risk for all. The opposite is also true, and that's, I guess, where we are now. Yeah.
Wow. Amazing points there. You